Yeah, that's showing. Good evening, folks. This is the Fireside Chat I told you I was gonna do tonight, and I've got my cousin Shay here with me.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shay, and I'm very happy to be here, and hopefully we'll have a bit of a chat tonight.
So Shay and I discussed what we were going to talk about tonight, and she came up with a suggestion on what would happen if we had a disaster and we were all stuck home for an extended period of time. And she mentioned maybe a good topic would be talking about medical. What if there's an illness? What if there's an injury? And we touched on, if you're home for a long period of time and you don't have much to do, and, boys and girls, and what happens if you are pregnant when the shit hits the fan, or what happens if you become pregnant while shit is hitting the fan.
Yeah, I mean, what would you do in an emergency if somebody breaks a leg? Somebody slips on the ice and breaks a leg, and they can't get an ambulance, or there's no ambulance available.
Or a heart attack, or a stroke, or anything. How would you all go about doing that? Do you have a reference book? Are you trained in medical? For you younger girls out there, do you have birth control? Have you thought about what would happen if the shit hit the fan and you were already pregnant? What if there was nobody there that could deliver a baby? Or what happens if there was a complication with delivery? And how would you stay healthy if you were not prepared and you didn't have as much food as you needed to have a baby, to have those nutrients that the baby needs or you need while you're carrying a baby? Have you thought about anything, how you would handle that?
Or, for instance, having a child planning on breastfeeding, and all of a sudden just finding out that you have no breast milk and you don't have formula or different varieties of formula for a baby. Just in case, in that kind of a scenario, you can't get to a store, or there's none on the shelves, or it's so pricey that you can't afford it. What kind of situation would that put you in?
And I don't even know, because I'm of that age that I don't know how could you store formula? Can you freeze it? Can you buy it in powdered form?
Yes.
You can buy it in powdered form?
Yes, there's both. I mean, my niece just had a baby and had planned on breastfeeding. She had no formula because she just assumed she's a young girl at 23 and figured that she would breastfeed. And thankfully, it's not in a situation where she couldn't get to the store and couldn't get a formula.
But is she able to breastfeed?
She is not.
She's not?
No, she was not. And her breast milk didn't come in. So she had to scramble to feed her baby. She had to think outside the box because that's not what she had planned.
Yeah, see, now it's lucky. She's lucky that she had a baby when the stores are open. She can get to the store. And yeah, see, you can't think in a linear pattern because all the unknowns. You just never know. Just never know what can happen.
No, absolutely not. And you have to be prepared to think outside the box, especially in a medical situation where there is no professional medical people around, or they can't get to you, or
you can't get to them.
You can't get to them, and
so you're thinking maybe a medical reference guide, or
yeah, medical reference guides. Buy them used on Amazon. You can download free ones. There are sites that allow you to download
And print them
And
off?
you can print them off. I looked into some of the medical guides that I wanted, and they were, over 500 pages. So that's a lot of printing. You got to be able to, sustain that. If you need to print 4 or 5 books, that's a lot of paper.
So you're better off buying the book.
You were, yeah. In that case, I was better off buying the book, which I did. But I bought a used copy off Amazon, and instead of spending $60 or $70 for it, I spent $12.
Yeah.
And it's in, perfectly, almost like new condition.
Now, I looked at that book, and I just skimmed it over, and I saw a stroke, I saw a heart attack, the warning signs, the things that can build up to a heart attack or a stroke, what you can look for, and how to treat it. Yes. Now, you all got to think about that, because there was a gentleman that a couple of days ago that asked me, what happens if you have a heart condition. And if you folks remember, I said, if you don't have your life-saving meds, or if you're on dialysis and you can't no longer get to that dialysis, is there a secondary plan that you can have in place?
Or somebody who takes insulin and can no longer get insulin.
And again, the 1 second after, that little girl that was diabetic.
Yeah. Yeah, he was able to get insulin, but only for a few months. And that was only because he basically threatened somebody to get that, if I remember correctly.
Now, folks, I talk about the 1 second after quite a lot. That was a book that was strongly encouraged that I read that a while ago. And that opened my eyes up to a lot of things. I bought the book. I gave it to Shay to read. She read the book. I informed my sister, and she didn't read the book, but she listened to the, what is it called, ebook?
The audiobooks.
The audiobook of 1 second after. And that scared the living daylights right out of her and opened her eyes quite a bit.
Yep, it did mine as well, because I was not, I've taken first aid and CPR and all kinds, and I've lived, a pretty similar lifestyle in my growing up years, but I still didn't think about a lot of the things that were in that book.
Well, we don't. Life is good. Life has always been good. We've had ups and downs. We've had struggles. We've never really... America is a spoiled nation. We've always had about everything at our fingertips. We've never had to really go hungry as a nation. We've always had just about everything at our disposal. So we don't think that way. We just don't think that way.
No, certainly not. I'm beginning to think that way more now. But 5 years ago, none of this even crossed my mind. I wouldn't have been prepared for more than 3 days for, being snowed in, just because I grew up in an area where you could be snowed in for 3 days or to a week, and you made sure you were prepared for that.
And you live that way now.
And I do now, yes, but 5 years ago I didn't, and it just never crossed my mind. I was oblivious to all of this. My eyes were completely closed.
Are you awake, Shay?
I am awake, but I believed the media. I did. I watched the morning programs and before I went to work, or I watched the evening news.
Well, you remember Walter Cronkite.
Absolutely. And it just never crossed my mind that our country would turn into what it is today with the media. So
not just the media.
Not just the media. No, absolutely not just the media. But now I don't believe in any of it, and I do my own research, and as you know, and I send you more stuff than you want to look at, because I'm constantly searching for the truth.
Yep. And and I think about everybody on this channel is awake, and everybody has their own ideas, their own thoughts, but I think we're all on the same page, as we're heading to a place that none of us wanted to go. None of us thought 20 years ago that we would be here and this country would be like this. And a lot of it, I believe, I was like you. I was real naive until I started putting two and two together, and it just wasn't adding up. It just wasn't adding up. So I started digging and digging and digging, and I bet it's been 20 years since I've stopped watching the news every single night. And now I don't have a TV, and I just do my own research and dig those holes, just like you do, Shay.
Mm-hmm.
Dig those holes, searching for the truth, and see what is adding up and what isn't adding up, and putting two and two together.
And 2 and 2 will always equal 4. It will never equal 5. So take that to the bank.
In the perfect world, 2 and 2 is 4.
Absolutely.
When things aren't adding up, 2 and 2 are 5.
Yeah, exactly. But I would suggest everybody that, if you have a chance to take a CPR and first aid course, you should absolutely do it. A lot of businesses provide them for employees. I know mine does, and
yeah, mine did.
Every 2 years I take CPR and first aid. I also have, HAZWOPER training, so I've been doing that for almost 10 years. So that kind of gives you more chemical interactions and how to prepare for that kind of a situation. But I would say if your employer, provides any kind of information or any kind of training like that, you should absolutely take advantage of it. And if they don't, ask them to.
Yeah.
Especially having first aid and CPR courses fresh in your mind.
Freshen up.
Yeah,
freshen up with it.
Yeah.
And American Red Cross always holds classes on CPR and first aid.
They do. They're not free unless you're, somebody's paying for them, but they absolutely do have them if you can afford to pay for them.
But also, folks, if you get online, some of you are pretty crafty. You get online and you go to current CPR on YouTube, and you can learn that way right off YouTube.
You can. There is a lot of free information out there, and I take advantage of as much as I can find and cram into my little head. And
now, there's also a lot of medicinal plants that I will be getting into when the weather is better. Shay's been wanting me to show her for the past few years.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And foraging videos for wild edibles. And as far as I know, I'm about the only one in here that is experienced in that. And there should be at least one other person, and Shay doesn't know it yet, but I've tagged her as a second person to know everything that I know, so at least two of us will know.
If you can cram it in my head and it stays there, we're good to go.
Notebook.
Notebooks, yes.
Notebook.
Lots of notes. Absolutely. And, because there's going to be a time when we're not going to be able to get the medicines that we trust. Not that I trust a lot of them, but, I do trust natural medicines. So the more we can learn, I think the better.
I agree. You can't have too much knowledge, folks. You've got to have the right knowledge. There's a lot of bad information out there, folks, and you've got to do your own research. And if Shay and I are out in the woods and I'm showing you this and that is edible, don't even take my word for it. Do your own research, all right?
Absolutely. I mean, how many times have you said, hold your hand out and eat this? And I've blindly done it.
Well,
but
thank you.
I'm still here.
Thank you for the trust.
So I do trust your knowledge. But absolutely, everybody should always, just like a second opinion.
Yeah.
You don't go to a doctor and they say I'm going to cut your leg off without a second opinion.
Yeah.
So always look for a second opinion, even or especially when it comes to, I don't know, what would you call it? Just natural medicines, I guess.
Yeah. So I think this is getting long enough. Shay, what'd you have for supper and how'd you cook it?
You really want me to say?
Yep.
I had leftover pork loin that I had cooked last night, and I put it on my wood stove in a pan with some coconut oil, some pineapple, and a quarter cup of Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper, folks! Dr. Pepper!
And it was delicious.
She said it was delicious, and she did that all on her wood stove. What I had for supper was I did a cheater supper. I opened up a can of tomato soup, put it in a pan on the wood stove, grabbed 2 slices of bread and a slice of Velveeta cheese, and had tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich. So, and that was also done on the wood stove. So that saves, if you've got the fire going already, you've already got the heat. No sense turning on the propane. You're just wasting it. If you've already got heat that's coming up out of your stove anyway.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of things you can cook on a wood stove, folks. A lot of things. So now's the time to start practicing. If you do not have a wood stove, maybe you can learn how to cook some of these things over an open fire, like I mentioned yesterday. Practice makes perfect.
It does, and we both have a lot of practice.
We both have a lot of practice. We're both country girls, folks. You think I have spunk?
I might have a little.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to close. Thank you all for watching. One of these days we'll try to do a live fireside chat. We'll see how we can even do that. And thanks for tuning in, folks. Appreciate it.
Have a good night, everybody.